up, everybody? Good morning and welcome back to another edition of the show. I'm joined once again, as always, by Cael Klingman up in Iowa. Cael, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Is it as always if I'm not on occasionally? Because sometimes you
Did I
fly
say
solo.
always? Did I say
You said
always?
as
As usual?
always.
As
Yeah.
always
As
lately.
usual might be better.
Hey, thanks for doing that on air instead of just giving me that feedback later. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Jerk.
that's more fun, man.
Yeah. I can take it. God
It's
knows I
more
can dish
fun.
it out. Hey, all right. It's January 10th. National duels were this weekend. You were out there, multi-divisional. Give me some of the highlights.
The women's wrestling was the highlight by far. It starts with Life University winning the NAI Women's Championship. First woman to lead a team to a national duels championship. Ashley Sword Flavin did that, and it was just exhilarating. There was two returning national champions at 116 pounds, and Peyton Presson came out with a 19-14 win. It kept going back and forth, and stoppages and clock issues, and it went about 22 minutes, and she finally came out 19-14, and then it came down to the final match at 191, and Life won it. The girl got concussed. It looked like she wasn't going to be able to continue on. Then she got the fall, and the celebration afterward was just something I'll remember as long as I'm in this sport. So it was unbelievable. And then in the D2 end, St. Cloud State set the all-time dual meet record in NCAA competition, regardless of division, at 77 dual meets in a row in the semis. And then they got beat in the finals, so they set it by one, and then they got beat the next match. So some interesting storylines that happened across all divisions.
Yeah, good weekend of wrestling, long weekend. A lot of matches and competitions taking place there. But I want to, we wrapped up the top 100 last Thursday, and I just want to kind of talk about it. I know we've had a couple shows where we've gone through and kind of talked about the different episodes, a couple episodes at a time, who's where and why. And I think we probably haven't really talked too much about the top 50. So I'm gonna pull this up and let's see, number 50, Joe Williams, looking through 50 through 41. Okay, so I think I said this before. There was names on this list that I never even heard of when we started doing it, and you being this encyclopedia, know everything about everyone, and you're like Robin Reed's got to be Robin Reed, and I'm like Robin. I've never heard of Robin Reed. Um, he's older, right? He was I just says Olympic gold, but I don't even know the year. I know it was a long time ago. What made Robin Reed just? And I saw some other people talking about it, but why was Robin Reed? Who was he, and what made him special?
He's from Oregon, and he was just a force during that era of
What
the
era?
guy that could beat everyone during the 1920s, 30s era.
Uh,
And he was just that guy that could beat everyone up and down the lineup, kind of like you hear about Gable, or probably Sanderson was bigger, so probably a little bit different there, but just one of those guys that owned the era and just didn't get beat, won an Olympic gold medal, and legend has it he could beat everyone up and down the lineup, even the Olympic gold medalist on the American team that was heavier than him could beat him. So just one of those guys that was a transcendent figure of that era that I thought was definitely worthy of being on this top 100 list. And I'm glad he made it. And that's the hard part, I think, as we went through, Mark, is we had recency bias, and for good reason.
sure.
And there's some really, really good guys, and we use that for the men and women equally. And there were some really good women that had credentials that we just said the early era isn't going to be as developed as the later era. And
Yeah.
so we took that into consideration, and some really good wrestlers got left off the list because of that. But we had to do it equally across the men's freestyle Greco wrestling and women's. But Robin Reed was one of those few that made it through because of how transcendent he was in the sport.
Yeah. Just peeking around. Thomas Gilman, right, lands at number 43. Um, Before the Olympics, Gilman wasn't even on this list. He was a world silver and a two-time world team member, right? He went in 18, I think, and 17 and 18, medal in 17. Um, Comes and rips off an Olympic bronze, right, and then a world gold, and all of a sudden shoots up 67 spots or something like that. 30, yeah,
Yeah, that was
57,
incredible
57.
because there's a guy, he wasn't even in consideration. If he wouldn't have placed at the Olympics or not placed at the Worlds, like there's just no way that he could be on the list. So it was pretty amazing how he just skyrocketed up the list just because of a period of time of about 2 months. He was able to make make some huge gains, bigger than anyone on the list.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Brandon Slay was tricky. What do you do with this guy? Never won the NCAAs. Won an Olympic gold, but I think he only made one team, right? Won a gold, and then it was kind of gone. But he beat a goat. What goes into your thought process on kind of? And I know we had him higher, way higher. We had him way lower. It was a tough one to kind of not a ton of credentials. Two NCAA All Americans, obviously Olympic golds, lights out. But some of the people above him, multiple time gold medals, multiple medals, bunch of teams. What did you think about trying to place Brandon Slay?
That was a tough one. I remember the preliminary meetings, and some other people had mentioned, hey, he's got to be fairly high because he beat Satiev in that opening round match, and nobody had been able to do that. So not only was it the Olympic goal, but it was who he beat along the way in that opening match. And I think when you have such a monumental win like that, when you think of Satiev winning in 96, 2004, and 2008, and the only person that kept him from being a four-time Olympic gold medalist was Brandon Slay. That one win carried a lot of weight in this top 100. So you could argue one side or the other, but I think he landed right about where he needed to be.
Of course, you think everybody landed right where they needed to be. You made
No,
this.
I don't. I don't think that, and
That's
we can
true.
argue that. I think Gable's too low, Dan Gable, and we can argue why that is once we move up the list. But that's
You
why
think he
this is
should be
fun.
higher? I mean, a lot of people think he should be way lower, and it's confusing because when you say higher, you mean a smaller number, right?
Smaller number, yeah.
Um, okay, Kerry Colott. Now, if you look at the people right around Colott, you're looking at Olympic gold medalists, multiple time Olympic medalist. Who's right behind him? McAraby's got one, two, three medals. World medals. Gutches has a gold, a bronze. It was an Olympian, a two-time is behind him. Stan Desick, Olympic bronze, world gold, also behind him. And I feel like this is again. There's no Rubik, right? There's no rubric. Excuse me. There's no specific criteria on what gets different people points for X amount of medals, or a world medal equals this, and an Olympic medal equals this. But Kerry Cola, I think we kind of overlooked maybe the actual outcomes and results of world, just counting up medals, and took into account what happened to him in 98, 99, and 2000 at the Worlds twice in a row, and then at the Olympics, because he was just that damn good, right?
I felt like it was actually 4 years, and I know in the documentary you guys did on Flow, he says 97 he gives a pass, but I don't give a pass to because I thought I got hosed in the finals there as well. So I thought it was 4 years in a row. I felt like this, in a way, was a little bit of some justice for Kerry Colott after all of the injustices. And I know from my vantage point, I'm big on the transcendent qualities, which is why I think Dan Gable should be just a few notches higher because of transcendent properties as you go forward and make determinations. I feel like Kerry Colott is a transcendent figure in wrestling. I feel like he did some things that were remarkable and made people notice. Third at Midlands, twice as a high schooler. And
Twice.
that's mind blowing to think about being able to do that in an era where that just flat out didn't happen. And it doesn't really happen now. I mean, think about a couple high schoolers getting third at Midlands, which is a really prestigious tournament. To be able to do that, it's pretty remarkable. So Kerry Colat's the one guy I felt like we really gave him a pass on some of those things because
Kinda.
he really, yeah, well, he got hosed, man, and he deserved to be a world champion. They took that away from him, and I think what we're saying with where we placed him is we're going to give it back to you.
And there's, I'm sure there's other cases. I know McCoy got screwed in '98. And I'm sure there's other instances that we aren't as well aware of. Um, but we are
Yeah,
aware of this one. And, you know, that's where we put
yeah. I
him.
mean, and I think we talked about this on the last one. Randy Lewis got hosed in '82. I mean, it was a situation where his hand got raised. They went back and redid the match, and then he ended up going for bronze when he should have been going for gold. So
At the
another
Worlds.
situation, yeah, at the Worlds in '82, and that was that situation where Leroy Smith made the team, got injured, and Randy was in a place that was serving Diet Pepsis, and he went to the World Championships kind of on a whim. They said, "Hey, can you do it?" Made weight and went up to Edmonton and ended up getting fourth, but he should have been going for first.
It was Diet Pepsi?
That's what he always says. He always says we were drinking Diet Pepsi. That's how Randy
Yeah.
always
Well,
says it.
if I know Randy,
Yeah.
those Pepsi's has some suds in them. Okay, Gable, Stevenson, another guy who went, and I think when we started this whole thing, we had him as like a placeholder at 100. Do you remember that?
hmm
And he hadn't really done. I think he had made the team. I think after he made the Olympic team, we're kind of putting this list together. Put him at 100, but knowing that if he didn't medal, he'd probably not be on the list. But we just had him there at 100 because we knew he could medal or what color it might be. Sure as shit, he gets gold. And you could say, hey, he only made one team. He won gold, but he left other guys off that won gold. And you put him all the way up at 37? Man, I don't know, but the dude won an Olympic gold. He's got a bunch of age group world titles, but we really haven't considered any of those.
The question would be is if he loses that match, is he on the list? If he's silver with an NCAA championship, is he in the top 100? And I'm saying probably not.
Yeah.
I'm saying probably not because it was a dramatic finish. It's everything that goes into it. We talk about transcendent qualities. He beats the reigning world and Olympic champions in the tournament, and he beat two really really good wrestlers along the way, and dominated Akul in the quarters, I believe it was. He won
Yeah.
8-0
Yeah.
there.
He won
The
big.
match with Feely, and it's dramatic, and he does backflips. Again, transcendent qualities play a factor in this, and how do you transcend the sport? I think Gable Stevenson did that.
Um. Okay, this kind of goes back to the point I think you were making earlier. Trish Stratus 4 world golds. How could she be as low as 23? But I think when you talk about the evolution of the sport, the styles, how many people were involved worldwide, I think it seems like a good spot.
Yeah, and we left off Shannon Williams, who was a four-time world silver medalist, which you think about that, you think, hey, how could you leave her off? But it was during those pioneering days, those early world championships where it wasn't as competitive as it is now, just the same as the early days of men's wrestling. So we had to take that into consideration across the board. However, I just have to give credit for those pioneers, Afsoon Johnston, Shannon Williams. I mean, they really laid the groundwork for why we're talking about women's wrestling the way we are. And Trisha Saunders, excuse me, is another example of
You're
that.
right.
And I respect all three.
I mean, where it got really tough was the top 15, top 10. I mean, you're talking like you got Terry Brands and Dan Hodge in the mid 20s, David Taylor and Tom Brands. We're like Kevin Jackson, Mark
Yeah.
Schultz, Kenny Monday, Lee Kemp, Dave Schultz. The, any of those could presumably just about be in the top 10, but they can't be because there's just not enough room.
Top 20 got really tough, didn't it? It just got really tough on where you navigate people and who belongs in what order. It was, boy, I just thinking back to it, it gives you a little anxiety just thinking about how to place the top 20 in particular. That was a really tough task.
Okay, let's just get right to it. You think Dan Gable's too low? One-time Olympic champ, one-time world champ, two titles. I mean, their argument, right? If you just go by the numbers, Gable should be like what 20, right? To give or take. Like I'm looking at here. You got a bunch of three-time world golds that are behind him. Adeline's got six. Dake's got three. Where do you think Dan Gable should? I don't even know if he should be in the top 10. But like, and I don't think this is. I don't think we're skewing this because of what he did as a coach, which is amazing. But I think we put him in the top 10 because of the transcendent quality of what he did as a wrestler. And the same can be said for Cael. But where you think Gable's too low?
I think
Go.
Gable should be number 3 just because of what he did. We're the sport that we are because of Dan Gable. And I think what he was able to accomplish as an athlete led to what he was able to accomplish as a coach. And keep in mind, this was during an era where there just wasn't money. He had to pay back an expense when he got money for a camp because it was strict amateur rules. So he's the first person to win back-to-back world and Olympic titles. So no one had done that before. So you're talking about an era where these what he was accomplishing just flat out didn't happen.
You think
So
he
in
should be
order to make
three?
money, I do. In order to make money, you
Sorry,
have to
Bruce.
go to yeah, I mean, in
Sorry,
order to make
Bruce.
money, you have to go a
Get
different
out of
route.
here.
And so I'm just saying, with what he did, his story, he elevated the sport to another level that we're still a product of. And I think that deserves to be recognized. And he nearly went unblemished when you look at it. I mean, over the course of the 72 Olympic trials and the Olympic Games, goes 22-0, doesn't surrender a single point. Unscored upon at the 1972 Olympics. I think those things all factor into it. The most dominant season in NCAA championship history, 31 of 33 matches were by fall, pinned his way through the NCAA championships. I just think all that together, 181 matches in a row through high school and college, all that plays a factor in an era where you had to be strictly amateur.
Do you think had he been able to make money, right? No limit. You can make as much money as you want. You think he'd have kept wrestling? Do you think his body would have held up? Do you think his type of training would have allowed him to go to two or three Olympics? Because it cut his coaching
He would
career
have had to,
short, right?
correct. I mean, yeah, he wouldn't have the coaching accolades that we're talking about right now had
Do you know?
he
But do you
kept
think
going.
he would have been able to compete for? He did two World Olympic years, right? 71, 72, making the team. Do you think he could have gone on through 76 or closer to 80?
I think through 76, and I've talked to the Petersons about that, who are on this list, John and Ben Peterson. They said he could have, but he would have had to make adjustments, just like you laid out in the Terry documentary, where he had to change his training too. I think for sure he would have had to make adjustments along the way. He couldn't have trained that fanatically, but I certainly think he's capable and he's smart enough to be able to make those adjustments along the way. He retired at 23. I mean, he wasn't even close to his peak at this point. And so
That's insane.
to think about another cycle going to 27, I think that we never saw the best wrestling Gable had. I think he was just tapping into that. And then the legendary stories, and I'm not even factoring in what people say about what he could do in the room. That doesn't count. You have to go with
You're about to
credentials
say
only.
it
But
though.
no, I'm just as context. I'm just saying he was king of the mat, and you can ask anyone. If it was a marathon match and it was a practice match, nobody beat Gable in the wrestling room. He was the dude there. So top to bottom, you ask those heavier weights, Chris Campbell, Ed Bannock. I mean, he put some punishment on those guys, and they're much heavier. So doesn't factor into how you make a judgment on who belongs on the list, but I just think
Well, it clearly
what we
factors
know
into
about.
into what you think because
No,
you're bringing it
I'm
up,
only
telling me why
going.
he should
I'm
be number
only going
three.
on. No, I'm giving you context. You asked for why I think Gable's so good. I'm giving you additional context on why I think Gable is
Should
one
be
of the
so high on
greatest
the
of all
list.
time. I do, yeah,
You're telling me
and didn't
why he
even
thinks he should be
factor
number
in the.
three.
I think he should be number three. Yeah, and it's the domination. It's elevating the sport to another level. It's during an era where you didn't have the opportunities that you do today, like a Burroughs or even Smith or a lot of people that were on the list. He just didn't have the opportunities. And I don't blame him. Why wouldn't you want to go make a living? You want to be an amateur for the next 4 years and hardly make any money? He went to the coaching route and it paid off.
Well, and that's one of the things that made this list so tough, right? You're judging different eras next to each other in one list, and you're judging men and women in freestyle and men in Greco in this same list, and that indeed does get really tricky. Um, Adeline Gray, she was vocal, right? She didn't like that she was number nine. Um, I would say one of our biggest decisions to place her there was not having an Olympic gold medal, and you can look at everybody above her except for Kyle Dake has an Olympic gold, and I think the thing about Kyle Dake is that he doesn't have an Olympic gold. He's got 3 world titles and Olympic bronze, and he had to take out the GOAT or the number two GOAT um, to make the Olympics this year. And Jordan, I think there was a thought for a little while that like, oh, he's on the downhill and he's catching him at the end of his career. Man, I still think he's won another world title. He's still right up by the crescent, and Kyle beat him. Um, that's damn impressive. Has anybody else beaten? I don't know if anybody else has wrestled him that many times, but has anybody else beaten Jordan Burroughs 3 times that you know of? Did Chamizo?
No,
I think
I mean,
Chamizo
in
just beat him
international, no.
twice. Chamizo beat
Sidikoff
him
beat him
twice.
twice.
Sidikoff beat him
Yeah.
twice, and I think that's it, right?
Yeah, and to add to Dake, here's where I think Dake gets way, way high marks. So as you look at the top 20 on this list, Dake has wins over 3 people in the top 20. He has wins over Burroughs, Taylor, and Jaden Cox. And those 3 individuals have won world titles from 74 kilos, 79, 86, and 92. So you're looking at a guy that has wins over 3 of those guys who've all won world titles across 4 different weight classes. And I just think the impressive nature of winning 4 Division I NCAA titles at 4 different weight classes, a record that can't be broken. It really can only be tied. I guess someone could with the 5 years, but nobody's going to do that.
Or then you could
But
go
it's
undefeated for under 4 weight over 4 weights, right? You could beat it.
yeah, you could
Four
do
years,
that.
four
But the
weights.
actual yeah, but the actual process of 4 weights at 4 different years, that's no one's done 2 weights. The only thing that has been done before Dake was 2 weights, and I mean he just absolutely blasted it out of the water. He doubled that output. So I think it's those factors: level of competition, what he did in college, and then who he defeated in the top 20. It's unprecedented.
It's really good. Um, how about a pair of Maryland natives doing 4 and 5 here,
Yeah.
and Helen. I think one of the reasons she got the big bump. Well, she's got 4 world and Olympic titles, but the weight, the 2016 Olympic gold, the groundbreaking, doing it the first time for an American female, and then taking out Yoshida, like the best woman to ever do it, right?
That and then 2 things factored in for me too was 2017, maybe the most dominant performance we've had in I don't know, at least 40, 30 years. 52-0 at the 2017 World Championships in Paris was just absolutely splendid there. And then the first U.S. woman to win multiple medals at the Olympic Games. She did that here in 2021 after all the concussions and having to come back. Just not only a great career, but amazing story.
And like I said, behind her, Snyder. I mean, think about this: Snyder's got 3 golds, 6 total medals, 3-time NCAA champ. Um, And if it wasn't for Sadulayev, who might be end up being better than Burroughs and Smith and whoever, if it wasn't for Sadulayev, he probably got what, three more golds,
Uh,
and he beat that guy.
yeah, three more. Yeah. And all his losses at the World's Olympics or World Team Trials, Olympic Trials, they're
Maybe two
Olympic
more.
champions. So, I mean,
Yeah,
he's lost to Varner, lost to Sadulayev, and then in, let's see, 2019, he lost in the semis to an Olympic gold medalist
was
as
it
well.
Sharifov?
So, yeah, Sharifov. So, his losses are to big time wrestlers. So when he loses at Worlds or Olympics, it's it's usually to someone really good.
Okay, John Smith, Jordan Burroughs. The debate raged on at Flow. I think there was plenty of arguments for both. John Smith, what did your gut say?
It was always John Smith from the beginning, and you said it best in the commentary. Like it was razor thin. It was razor thin. Like you can make a really good argument that Jordan Burroughs to be deserves to be that number one spot.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of reasons for that. Namely, you look at who he's beat in the top 20 as well. He's beat Dake, he's beat Taylor on this list, and then the ability to go up and down weight classes, win six, makes multiple teams. I mean, if he wins those matches against Sidakov, I think it's probably rock solid that he's the number one on this list because he would be standing at eight likely right
eight.
now. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, so it's a matter of probably 2 seconds between Jordan Burroughs being number one and John Smith being number two. 2 seconds, and we're talking about Jordan Burroughs is the number one on this list. So I just for me, I just felt like that six in a row, 6 for 6. Before John Smith, no one had won more than two in a row. Lee Kemp had won three total, but then he doubled that output. And even since then, nobody's won more than three in a row. So I think it's the most unbreakable record in U.S. wrestling history, the six in a row, the consecutive six. No one's going to do that.
No one's gonna do it. You're calling it
Yeah, I
right
mean,
now.
Burroughs was in a position. He'd won three, and then
Yeah. Yeah,
2014, he
three
gets a
more to win
bronze.
still.
So yeah, so you got to break it. You got four more in a row to win. Kyle Snyder won three in a row, and then gets the silver. So it's just it's or actually bronze that next year, and then two silvers. But yeah, it's a long road, man.
Here's what I think about this. There's plenty of criticism, and that's fine, right? If you think you're like, oh, so and so's at this number, that's wrong. If you then it is wrong because there is no 100% right list, and what anybody else thinks, hey, they screwed this up. Then you're right, we did to you, right? And this is because this is Flow Wrestling's list of the top 100. This isn't like the end all be all list. Everybody can have their own list.
Yeah, there's
They
no
have
such
stuff to put
thing as an end
together.
all be all list, Mark. There's no
Yeah,
such thing.
exactly. Nobody can put that
It
together because
doesn't
nobody
exist.
has it. Yeah,
And I
and
think Cael's accomplishment deserves to be recognized. 159 and 0 in college. It was fun for me living in Iowa during that time because he absolutely elevated the entire sport. Because you went to Iowa State duels and everyone was buzzing, doubled attendance because of Cael. His last dual meet was at Northern Iowa, and I made sure I went to that because I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to see that history. And when he won that 159 in a row in Albany, New York, that standing ovation just flat out didn't end. And
yeah,
I
I was at
just
that one. It
were you? Yeah, I mean,
was awesome.
I'd never experienced anything like it. It was just people were just every single person in that arena. I just remember looking down and seeing Joe Williams standing on his feet. Everyone was giving him a standing ovation, and he was Cael mania there for a while. It was the Wheaties boxes, it was the bobblehead doll, it was the big Hy-Vee cutout. Des Moines Register did a 3-part picture, life size picture of him that you could collect. And it was unbelievable what he did. And so the nation took notice, and again, you want to talk about someone that transcended wrestling. People knew about that, and it was loud and clear. And Sports Illustrated put it as the number 2 all-time college accomplishment behind Jesse Owens. So that shows you how impressive that was. Just an unbelievable accomplishment that still resonates today.
What was that last duel meet like in West Gym? I assume it was West Gym
Oh, it's packed.
against
Yeah, people were scalping tickets out front. People, because West Gym's
see one
smaller.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, people were scalping tickets, and what I remember is I was a little disappointed because he had bumped up to 197. They had drawn, and so I think it started at 174. So I think everyone was
Ah.
hoping that Joe would be the last one, but they drew for the weight, and he wrestled a guy named Jason Payne from Northern Iowa and got a technical fall. So he he brought the heat, man, and it was dominant. And I can just remember if he didn't win by a big enough score, you think, something's wrong with Cael if he only got a major decision, or you
Yeah.
just you expected him to go out there and get a fall or a technical fall almost every time. So it was a great era to be following wrestling in the state of Iowa and across the nation.
And to that point across the world, right? I know I've been on these international trips, and I just remember specifically in 2011 when he came back to wrestle, all kind of being up in the stands with the American section, like all these and he had lost, right? He lost the bronze medal match. He didn't medal, but these international fans, they didn't care. They're coming out from all over the place. They would like find him, and tap him on the shoulder with a pencil and a paper. So before the day of the selfie, right, or a pen, and they wanted an autograph. So that to me is another glimpse at why he's so transcendent.
And he left hardware on the table. He 2001 9/11 hits. We were supposed to have the World Championships in New York City in '01. 9/11 they postponed it, so that was going into Cael's junior year of college. So he opted not to go to the World Championships. Stephen Abbas was also in college. He opted to go to the World Championships. 2002, it's in Iran, and there's a credible threat against the United States. So the entire U.S. team boycotted in 2002. So you look at 2001, Cael's replacement, Brandon Eggum, won a silver medal at the World Championship. So you got to think Cael would have been a great position to win a gold there. So there's 2 opportunities there that he missed out on that he could have been a world champion. And then finally had his chance in '03, got a world silver in New York City in '03, and then won the gold in 2004. So some hardware left on the table for Cael.
So as you look back over this whole thing, Kyle, what are your takeaways from doing this? Either what you learn or what do you remember the most? What stands out as awesome or frustrating or great, or I don't know, just kind of like thoughts on this project and putting this together, because we had kind of started this before the merger with Track, and then we put it together. We were like, yo, we need Kyle. Perfect, perfect project for you to be a part of.
Yeah, I'm proud of the top 10 and how that materialized. I know there's going to be debate back and forth on where people deserve to go, but it's a really difficult process, and you have to take personal feelings out of it because, boy, when you're trying to make a list like this, it's not personal at all. And like we mentioned earlier, Shannon Williams is one of my favorite wrestlers, one of the favorite people I've dealt with, but you do have to use the same criteria across the board. And then I think, as we talked about, staying true to the criteria that you've set and just using that throughout the process, saying this is the criteria that we're using right now, and knowing that it's not personal, and it's really hard to make these determinations because you're not ranking a person based on who they are. You're just saying this is where we feel like you belong in the journey of wrestling and where people are. And I just think it was a fun project, although, boy, there was times at the end of the calls, boy, my head hurt. It really hurt at the end of those calls because we'd be 2 hours in, and we would have kind of figured out maybe 20 different ones. And boy, you're just like, yeah, we gotta have a fresh start on this. So proud of what we did, but as you said, there's differences that both you and I have, and the other people that were involved in the project had as well.
So, and I know what you mean, but I said, because I said we just contradicted each other earlier. I said we didn't have a rubric, we didn't have like a set criteria, and then you just said, well, we got to follow the criteria we set. there was a criteria, but it wasn't like an exact science. So give me what your criteria was, the base of your criteria to put this list together.
I keep saying it, but transcendent. I think that it was a combination of world and college success, so we kind of factor that in. I think as I went through, the only person that didn't make a world team of any kind that made the list was Pat Smith. So clearly, when we go through that, the highest level really did play a factor, although college did have some bearing, as we saw with Cael and Kyle Dake and others, Logan Stieber being another one, but they also had some world credentials to go along with it. So we're looking at the highest level. We're saying transcendent qualities. And admittedly, we use recency bias. We're saying the more recent, we're saying this is a really tough era right now. And the closer you are to 2021, the more likely you're going to be on this list.
Did Wade Chalice make a team?
He won a university world championship. So I was saying a
Okay.
world team of any kind. So Wade
Okay.
Chalice
Okay.
did not.
Okay. So it could be like a grade school world team.
Well, not necessarily. So if you're just talking about senior
I'm just
world
busting
teams,
chops.
but I know, but it's a good point though. Wade Chalice and Pat Smith are the only ones to not make a senior world
Yeah.
team or Olympic team.
Yeah.
So
That's it, man. The list is out,
factors.
top to bottom. And I mean, I say this to maybe anybody who's overly scrutinizing the list, but I would love to, but I really would just love to see other people's take on the list. Take this, and we gave you 100. Take somebody off, put somebody on, move them around. I'd love to see other people's lists, and maybe I'd be like, dang, this makes more sense. Maybe I'd be like, it doesn't. It's hard. Um,
Yeah.
and like you said, you could just go by strictly medal counts and put them in an easy list, but I think this was harder to do and made for
Yeah, and it's worth it's worth noting that we left off Olympic gold medalists. Glenn Brand won it in '48. We left off two Olympic champions from 1960, Terry McCann and Shelby Wilson. We left off a two-time Olympic gold medalist, George Maynard, who won it in 1904 and 1908. But again, based on the criteria we said, George Maynard won it in 1908 just against American
American.
competition. So we're saying that doesn't hold as much weight as Bruce Baumgartner and John Smith, who won multiple Olympic gold medalists in a pretty impressive era.
Yeah, or Dan Gable, who you have as three. Which,
I
man, I'm
do.
interested to see what people. I mean, I love you, Kyle. This seems not quite right, but
Well, hey, you even said it too. Like, hey, in your commentary with Gable, you're like, hey, we're in a museum named after Dan Gable. He's probably the most recognizable name in the sport. And so I turn that back on you. Dan Gable is the most recognizable name in the sport. I mean, you look at what people have said about him. I mean, Tom Cruise is a big fan of him. Ashton Kutcher. I mean, you just go down the line. Just people who know wrestling or don't know wrestling, they probably know who Dan Gable is. And is coaching a factor in that? Absolutely it is. But what he did as an athlete led to his coaching. And I just think he lifted the entire sport, and he's still the biggest name in our sport. And I think that warrants high marks.
then why don't you put him number one?
Just because I think John Smith's what he did was able to go a little bit further. He really extended the boundaries of what was possible. And so to be able to win six in a row, he actually showed, hey, this is what you can do. And when he won six in a row like that, I just think he absolutely shattered everything that we had in the sport at that time. And it was during an era just trapped between the Gable era and then the era of social media, is that he kind of did it like, I'm just winning championships here. You just win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I think if he would have been doing that in a social media era, I think people's minds would have been blown. I don't think he got the recognition he deserved at the time. And I'm glad he's getting it now.
Well, he's got it. He sits atop the throne as
And then,
the
hey,
greatest
you got to
American
tell
wrestler of
us,
all time.
Mark. I mean, wasn't wasn't Burroughs into this whole top 100?
You know what, he was. I spent a couple. I saw him a couple times working on a couple different things over the last few months, and he wasn't asking where am I or who did I am I top or this or that. He was like into, oh man, I sit down every week and watch it with my kids. The whole family watches it, and we're learning so much. He was very complimentary of you, Kyle. And he would be like, was over at his house once, or his apartment, I guess, in Jersey or Philly. He's sitting behind a computer. I don't know what he's reading, but he's like, he's got some list of names somewhere, and he's like, how about so and so? Are they on it? Yep. How about this person? How about that person? Three, four, five in a row. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And they'd say a name, and I'd be like, nope. It's like, dang, that person's not on it. How about? And he just got really into it. I feel like he's really a wrestling history buff, and why not if you're a huge part of it, which he is. But yeah, he was way into it, and every time I'd see him, he'd just watched it with my family last week.
Yeah.
How about this person? And then, but as it got closer to the end, he's like, "Well, I know everybody who's on the list now. Because if they haven't made it, then they're not gonna make it, and only have so many
Yeah.
spots left." And it was pretty evident
Yeah.
who was gonna land in those spots. But yeah, yeah, Jordan seemed very, very into the idea. He really liked it. He was complimentary, which is cool.
And then Lee Kemp sent a message saying, "Hey, thanks for including me in the top 10." And the reality is he did the work to get there. So we
Yeah,
should uh, we should celebrate his legacy, which we did. So he was number 10 on the list. And really, as we're talking about making history, again, Lee Kemp won 3 world championships, and before that, no one had won more than 2. And so when he won
yeah,
his second world championship, no American had won more than 2, and then he was peaked and ready for the 1980 Olympic Games and didn't get that chance because of the boycott, and then won another world title in '82, and then Dave Schultz took over from there. So, and we didn't even get into Mark and Dave Schultz at all, talking about their career they did. So, I mean, it's just, and people were upset. Like, hey, I saw a couple people, and I tried not to pay attention too much just because I knew
it's
the list was
fun.
going to be the list. Ed Bannock, some people were uptight about, and my thinking with Ed is that when you take that '84 Olympics and specifically is that if you were able to have accomplishments around it, like Dave Schultz won the '83 World Championships, which I think enhanced it along with a lot of other things, but Ed
Yeah,
Bannock won the 3 NCAA championships, 4-time finalist, which is unbelievable. Won the '84 Olympic gold medal, but really didn't have much else other than that, other than '83 World Team, and then his career stopped. So you just have to kind of to look at that, and just to make the top 100, though, we keep going back to that. Just getting on this list is just an amazing accomplishment. So I hope at some level anyone that made it is proud.
yeah. I actually got a couple messages from guys who were just off the list, and he actually was like, "Hey, how close was I to making it? Just curious." He's like, I get it." I'm like, "You were so close that I think we actually had them on the list until some of these people in the Worlds and Olympics just this last year made the list, and it bounced a couple people off. Sorry, but Gilman knocked you off. Gilman
Yeah,
or whoever else making their way on. Gable, although I think he was on the list for making Gable Stevenson, but it was fun.
yeah,
It was fun, and
yeah.
in a year, by the time he retires, you could very well see Jordan Burroughs at number one. We'll see.
It could. I mean, the dude's unbelievable. Like you just can't even you have to rave about what he's done and the longevity. He really has changed the entirety of American wrestling and what he's done and what the possibilities are. And I love that he's continuing to compete because he's just really taking us to a different level, competing into his mid 30s and being so
Yeah,
successful, winning world championships. The guy is he's a brilliant wrestling mind and a just unbelievable wrestler. So happy to see him engaged in this project.
yep, yep. So I don't know, man. I mean, we could go on all day, literally, and talk about all the different people on this list. But I think we've done a decent job, kind of covering it, going over some of the rationale and explanations. You got any parting words for us, Kyle?
Love working with you. I know that it's not reciprocated all that much
Hundred
when it comes
percent.
to working with me because
Never.
yeah, you tear into me. It
I
was tough
just don't
working
like
with
you.
you. Yeah, I know, and that didn't get in the way of what the end result was on this project. So I'm glad your personal feelings didn't get in the way of the top 100. So
It
I'm
just would have
proud
been
of
more
that
fun to do it, but yeah,
with someone else. I know,
yeah,
but
yeah.
we made it
All right.
and we're alive. And I'll tell you this though, I ain't going through this. I need to forget what it was like because it was so daunting that I don't know that I want to do this for another decade.
Oh hell, we're doing it again soon. We'll figure out something else, another list. But
Well,
that
another
was
list
fun.
is fine. We can
It's
do
not
all
the same
time
one.
coaching. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, open the floodgates, dude.
I know. Include D3, D1, international coaches. Throw all that in there.
Jeez.
See how that shakes out.
All right, all right. Now you make me get anxiety again. Let's cut it. It was a great show, but I think we should finish right there. Cael, thanks so much. Thanks so much for tuning in, folks. We'll see you next time.